So I want to walk through the three movements for the bent over row, the dumbbell swing, and a Romanian dumbbell deadlift. I want to walk you through all three of those, making sure that you know exactly what to do and that you're not falling into the classical bad movements that can really hurt your back. We're going to just, for the sake of demonstration, use some light dumbbells. We'll start with the bent over row or the low row. Okay. All three of these movements require a very good hip hinge. Okay, so a hip hinge essentially is making sure that you get your butt up and back as you allow your knees to bend. What I don't want to see as I walk through a couple of things is a stiff-legged where I just kind of arch over it, okay, and I'm not letting my knees bend, okay? The other one is sometimes you can see there, my butt never went back, right? And so now I'm on my tippy toes, my heels almost want to come off, and I do see that sometimes. You guys are almost kind of here, okay? Another part of the bent over row and the hinge is making sure that you're not overarching your spine and over squeezing your shoulder blades. So that's not what we want either. I can feel some discomfort already just with doing that, my low back and the mid back. And the last thing that I wanted to go over with the hip hinge is to make sure that you don't round your back, okay? So with all that being said, it's letting the butt come up and back, probably more than you think. Let the knees bend. And I'm gonna start with my bent over row with my palms facing each other, okay? Of note, you do not have to start here, okay? That's almost for experts only to go really that low. I'm gonna suggest to make sure that you do it right and to get it started that your hands are about mid-shin level, okay? Now what also makes a bent over row tough is that when you want to row, most people want to use just their elbows, okay? So this is the wrong way to do it. Why? Because my elbows are coming up too far past my trunk. The elbows should stop about right at the trunk level, okay? So they're stopping about right here, and I'm trying to really squeeze my shoulder blades together, all right? Of note, you can't quite see here, I'll do my best to show you from that angle. I don't want you to shrug, okay? So we don't want to be shrugging as we bring it up. So I'm kind of reaching down and back with my elbows and squeezing my shoulder blades together, okay? I'd suggest palms facing each other to get started. If you do have a variation where you're supinated, where your palms are facing away, the tendency that you might fall into is here, where my elbows are more likely to kind of go too far past my trunk and my shoulders want to kind of dip forward. So that's the position people want to end up in. So you got to make sure to really kind of pull, again, down and back, all right, regardless of whether your palms are facing away, palms are facing in, or palms are facing you. It's really the same principles, okay? Now, if you go into a high row, in that position, you really have to be careful of shrugging, okay? So a high row, just meaning the elbows can come up. I tend to find most people do too much weight for that, all right? So let's just say you were too much at 15. We'll just bring it down for threes for the purpose of reviewing it. Getting yourself in that nice hip hinge position. You can come up, but what I don't want to see is this. You can come up, but drive the elbows up. Don't allow the upper traps to kind of tip forwards. We don't want to see that motion. So here's a good example of a kind of a high row in this bent over row position. And notice on my low back, my core, they're doing the stabilizing, okay? I'm not whipping or anything like that. I'm just locking in there. I'm letting my shoulder blades and my arms do the majority of the work. So I just want to kind of go over those key points for the bent over row. So the next movement I wanted to go over, similar to the bent over row, is a dumbbell or kettlebell swing. For the sake of today, we'll just use a dumbbell, okay? So if you don't feel like you've mastered the hip hinge, I'd encourage you to really go back, try to master the hip hinge for all three of these movements. Because if you don't have the basics, it's gonna make your life very difficult to get a good workout and a good exercise out of all three of these. That being said, we're gonna drop into our hip hinge. Now, again, some common mistakes. People keep their legs too straight. Okay, so we want to kind of soften the knee. We might overly round our back, so we're going to bring that up. We don't want to overly squeeze our shoulder blades. and we don't want to overly arch either, okay? Along with that thought process, we also don't want to squat our dumbbell swing. So it is truly a hip hinge. So we're getting here. Now, my arms should be pretty relaxed. Sometimes your arms are bent and you're squeezing it so hard, but your arms should be pretty relaxed, okay? Let the arms be straight. This is our starting position. You don't have to go all the way down. Very few people, if any, are able to get into this position and have a proper mechanics. So I'd stick to probably mid-shin level, okay? So we'll get down here. Now when I come up, I don't want to just muscle it up with my arms. That would be using my arms, my delts, to get that up there. This is a hip exercise. I wouldn't call this a back exercise even. It should be coming from your glutes. You should be really extending through that. So we're here, and we're going to try to do a quick hip thrust, and my arms are just going to fall into the momentum of that. So we're here, heads forward. I don't like this position. Keep it down and drive it up. And then you can kind of control it as the weight comes down. But I'm really not even squeezing this thing. I'm pretty lightly holding on to the dumbbell just to make sure it doesn't fly out of here. Okay, so you can see as I come up, I'm squeezing my quads, driving my hips forward. And this doesn't have to go all the way up here, all right? You should be able to generate enough force for that to be about eye level, but there's really no reason for you to have to force it all the way up there, okay? That kind of falls into the trend of wanting to use too much of your arms, all right? So I think that's good for the dumbbell swing. The last one I wanted to cover today are dumbbell deadlifts. You might hear them called Romanian dumbbell deadlifts. It's really a great exercise. Hamstrings, glutes, and really what we call the whole posterior chain, which can be your lats and your back, stuff like that. So to be very repetitious, we're going to get into a very good hip hinge, okay? So my knees are going to bend slightly, butt is up and back. Again, that doesn't mean I'm arching to get there, all right? Keeping my core locked on. And I'm just going to get to that hip hinge to start. Now, I personally like the palms facing towards you to do this. We want to be respectful of how much hamstring length you have. Some have a lot more length than others. Some of you will be able to go down very easily. But for the majority of you, again, I would say stick to about mid-shin level. This is a pretty good place to be. Good full range of motion, all right? Now as you come up, some of you are getting glute happy and you're tucking too early. And not only that, you're finishing here. So if I were to show you the bad motion again, you're tucking and you're overextending, all right? So what we want to do is keep your back rigid, keep it tight, and I'm going to draw up. I am using my glutes, but I'm going to be careful of not overextending. I'm just going to stop right here. Some of you, it'll feel like you're not done yet because you're so used to overextending. All right, so driving up. We're going to make sure that we don't overextend. We're squeezing our glutes, squeezing our core. Keep your arms straight and tight, but not bent. All right, some of you will have a tendency kind of almost curling it up. You might kind of find that you're kind of using your arms and traps even. So at the very bottom, your arms should actually be pretty relaxed, but you should still be squeezing and tight. And as I come up, I'm engaging my lats, almost kind of pulling the dumbbells back towards me, standing up, being mindful that we don't overextend. Okay, so the right form, slowly down, pause, power up. That's a general rule that I like for my clients to be able to learn how to do, and for you to learn how to do. The eccentric portion, or as I go down, is very important. But a lot of people just kind of speed through it, and they'll kind of miss out on it, okay? There's a little variability. I can stay a little straighter with my hamstrings if I want to be a little more biased towards working the hamstrings. Or I could even go a little bit wider here if I wanted to actually bias a little bit more of the glute. You can see that I can spread my legs out. You do not have to be shoulders width apart with your feet pointed forwards. That's kind of a rule of thumb. Most people bite to and they're not sure why. We have to kind of listen to your anatomy. It depends on what your goals are, okay? So those are the three that I wanted to go over. We talked about a low roll where you're in a bent over low roll position, making sure your elbows don't go too far past, make sure you don't flex, and make sure that you don't overarch. We talked about a dumbbell swing. Furthermore, making sure we get into our good hip hinge position, not overusing our arms, driving with the glutes, and it's not a back exercise. It's really a hip dominant exercise. Make sure that your hands don't necessarily go above the eyes. You just need it to come about eye height. And the last one would be a Romanian dumbbell deadlift or a dumbbell deadlift. I'd say some of the key points with that. Don't try to muscle it up using your elbows. Try to slow down the pace, go about mid-shin position, and then make sure that while you are using your glutes, but you don't early thrust and you don't overextend when you get to the top. So make sure that you follow all of those key points when you do those really strong functional movements.